I'd like to welcome Her Excellency the Governor of New South Wales, Marie Bashir, to the stage. There's steps over there, ma'am. Former Premier of New South Wales, Christina Keneally, and Professor Fiona Wood. Would you please come up to the stage? As our guests come up, I'll tell you a little bit about them. Professor Marie Bashir, Governor of New South Wales, was born in Narrandera, New South Wales, is a medical graduate of the University of Sydney, a former medical resident officer at St Vincent's Hospital and the Children's Hospital. In March 2001, Professor Bashir was appointed Governor of New South Wales. Dr Fiona Wood, another extraordinary Australian, of the year indeed, in 2005. She's been a burn surgeon and researcher for the past 20 years. She works out of Perth, as I said earlier. She's here for less than 10 hours, so we're so grateful for you to make that incredible journey across Australia for us. And finally, the Honourable Christina Keneally is Chief Executive Officer of Basketball Australia. Of course, we got to know her very well as a minister in the New South Wales Labor government, and then of course the first female Premier of New South Wales, the 42nd Premier of this state. Would you please make our guests very welcome? Ma'am, do you have your microphone there? I do. Good. I think they're on. Is that right, Mr. Audio?
Hello. Yes.
Hello, yes. I think we'll just do some little chats. We'll move across the panel and then we'll open the floor up to questions. Ma'am, thank you again for coming this morning. I know Special Olympics means a lot to you.
Indeed, it's a pleasure.
In the extraordinary work you have done over many years for our community, is there a common thread that has inspired you and sustained you through your remarkable public service?
Well, I think, even though it may sound nebulous, it's the Australian spirit. I think there's nowhere on earth where people love and respect one another in such a meaningful way. Now, that's a big generalisation, but I have worked and travelled around the world, and it seems to me that Australians go that extra distance. I've just come back from the flood-stricken areas, and you see evidence of that wherever you go, people pulling together.
Can you hear me on this? Yes, you can. Ma'am, I've sat next to you at numerous functions and you've spoken about your days as a psychiatrist, and you've spoken about wandering through the streets of some of our suburbs like Redfern. And to this day, when you saw these young people, they were young people, but they still come up and say hello, don't they? And say thank you for your...
They do. They've got my silent number, in fact, and every now and then I have coffee with them too.
Even as Governor of New South Wales,
yes.
You just slip out and have coffee with some of the...
Yes.
And these are kids that have grown up in tough suburbs, tough areas?
Oh yes, and some of them now are veterinary surgeons, teachers, social workers.
So perhaps they're the people that inspire you as well?
Oh, they do. That's the spirit again of this country.
In your present role as Governor of New South Wales and of course the Chancellor of the University of Sydney, as I said in my introduction, you inspire me and you inspire, I have no doubt, everyone in this room. Who is the person, whether it's your husband or one of your children, that really you draw that maximum inspiration from? I'm trying to hone in. You've talked about the generalisation, the Australian spirit, but is there someone who you really draw on?
Well, look, I was truly blessed because I had the most loving family and extended family. You know, my parents, any time I faltered, encouraged me. This is, you know, going through medicine, whatever, and also turned me around and said something that might not go down too well. Remember who you are, pull yourself together. There's plenty of work there where people need you, and then you'd get that from grandmother too. But I think, again, I had the joy of growing up in a rural area, then coming to school and university and high school and university in Sydney. And again, wherever I went, and those young people you mentioned, they too are very inspirational, you know, because of their resilience and courage.
You are in a great position where you can observe society, if you like.
Yes.
What do you think society is like today? What are the challenges that most face our young people in this room, as compared to, say, a decade ago or 20 years ago?
Oh, well, I think it's a more competitive society. It's a very successful society, and that, of course, imposes a burden on young people who are very often self-critical, especially young men. And nevertheless, that's up to us to quietly encourage without being over-maternal, let me say. But one of the things too is that our young people are worldly and they're well-educated. They think not just about Australia but beyond, to the whole world. And this is marvellous for Australia because we've got the key role in the Asia-Pacific region in what has been called the Century of Asia. We're a welcome member. I've been travelling to China since the days of the Cultural Revolution, and I know how strong the bonds are of respect and also collaboration in universities. Certainly with the United States on the other side of the Pacific, that also holds true. So this places a wonderful but very serious responsibility on us to be the one who balances the two.
Do you think we're a respectful society?
I do.
Even the young people today, I've spoken to police officers and things, and they say, I don't know that we get the respect that sometimes the uniform might promote.
Oh, well, Socrates said things like this a couple of thousand years ago. The young have always been criticised, but this is part of their development of trying out the boundaries.
You're a very busy Governor of New South Wales. Just give us an idea of your daily routine, if you like, the diary that you have to attend to every day.
Oh, well, today there's this wonderful gathering in support of a most wonderful cause, the Special Olympics, bringing people together who want to see those wonderful initiatives supported. Then after this I go to an Executive Council meeting, which happens at least once a week, which as Christina Keneally would know includes a minimum of 2 cabinet ministers and the official secretary who has a law degree. That's a capital O and a capital S, by the way, Chief of Staff. And we go over the business that's come up from the government for approval. And then that's passed and it becomes enacted into law. Now you might say that's a very powerful role, but the thing is that the Legislative Assembly passes the law and it goes on to the Legislative Council, they approve it and pass it, so then it comes to the Governor for signing off, really. I mean, it's a convention that is part of a democratic monarchical system, and you might say, well, can you refuse to sign it if you don't like it? Well, no, never, because then I'd be like Robert Mugabe. I'd be a dictator, and this is a democratic society. But I can say I'm worried about this particular item. I wonder, is it really in the best interests of our people? I'd like more research. Could you bring me more research so it can be deferred for a week or so while more research is being brought? If it comes back and you're still worried, you can get your own research. Well, you can. No, I can bring access to the constitutional experts at the Australian National University or at Harvard or wherever. And, I'm going to extremes, but on occasions we've done that sort of thing. And then provide the information in a sealed, hand-delivered envelope to the ministers responsible, and sometimes it doesn't come back, meaning the item on the agenda. That's rare, but what I'm saying is we've got a wonderful democracy that works superbly, I think.
And I think you also step in if the Governor-General of Australia is out of the country. You have let's say you're the second in command if a constitutional issue does come up.
Yes, last week Her Excellency was in Korea, so the only difference you'd know is suddenly 2 security men arrive out of the blue. You know, looking at the sky, looking around, looking inconspicuous. But as governor, I don't have security. I should perhaps confide that.
We'll look after you, don't you worry. Now,
It's fun to be shopping at night at Woolworths at the supermarket. And the young men, it's the young men who come up and they say, "Where's your security? Are you who we think you are?" And I say, "Yes." And they say, "Where's your security?" And I say, "Well, you are, aren't you? You're looking after me."
Aren't you wonderful?
No.
Woolworths, I love it.
But it's Australia, isn't it?
And that's just beautiful. It is Australia. Now, this is all happening before lunchtime, not the Woolies part, but all these meetings.
Yeah.
You've got a busy afternoon. Perhaps I can cut. What time will you get to bed tonight?
Oh, about midnight. We've got a reception this evening for a charitable group. And we've got a security officer coming about international security to talk about that, and a couple of diplomats. So.
What an extraordinary schedule you have, and how lucky are we to have such an extraordinary woman as Governor of our state.
But you'd all do it. You would.
Oh, yes, we would.
I mean, there's one thing you're never bored, and that's when you have difficulty is when you start getting bored about anything. Isn't that the case?
Challenge you want to challenge every day, don't you?
Well,
that's what
it's a glorious country. Last week it was seeing all the wonderful SES workers, the volunteers, the Rural Fire Service in those flooded areas. And it's inspirational, it really is, to see what they do for our country, our individuals who are in need or in crisis.
They're the fabric of our community. Indeed. Professor, thank you. Governor, thank you.
Pleasure.
Please sit there and enjoy as we talk to Fiona and Christina. But thank you for letting us into your world a little bit this morning.
Thank you.
Professor Fiona Wood, I asked the Governor, Your Excellency, about what inspires her. You're another woman that inspires us with your incredible work in the field of medicine. But who do you draw on for your inspiration?
Well, as I was sitting here thinking, I wonder if he's going to ask me that same question. And I'd have to say, it's people around me. And there's been some of those people are consistent. The first couple that spring to mind are my mum and dad. They're both over 80 and still going strong. And I got a lot of strength, as has been said, from the whole concept that you get up in the morning, enjoy what you do, and give back. And you can do anything you like. The only prerequisite is that you've got to work at it. And if it was easy, anybody would do it. So I was brought up with this whole concept from my mum and dad that the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I've been very fortunate. I get up in the morning and I enjoy what I do. And that's in no small part the education that my mum and dad crawled over hot coals to make sure I got. I went to a high school that was an interesting and long, complex story, but it was a Quaker school. And the morning I went over there, bursting with pride, because it was the first time I'd ever worn a school uniform. It was all second-hand, but who cared? My mother looked at me and she said, "Grasp the nettle with both hands and never let go." And kind of did, really. I
will tell that to my 6-year-old when I'm reading her book tonight.
But
it's a great thing. Grasp the nettle and never let go.
But then I'd also say on every daily basis, I see people whose lives have been changed in an instant. And that human resilience, that is just extraordinary to witness. I am involved in Special Olympics because of a Special Olympian. I have known all my professional career and his mum. You know, will you help us? Dead right, because they helped me. If I am in a privileged position to help somebody's life journey, my goodness, I've got to give that something of that back. And then this Aussie spirit, you look back bigger, and I think, where in the world could I be a proud Yorkshire lass and an Australian? And it's not odd, it's not incompatible, it's just the way it is. And I go home to Yorkshire home, and they go, "Oh, they've seen pictures from the floods in Brisbane, I think it was, but nobody was looting," says Mum and Dad. That's all because they wouldn't. And they say that is an example for the world. And it is. It's an example for the world. There's always bad eggs. There's always a tiny little bit of bad egg. But we have got so much good egg. Yeah.
We have got a lot of good egg. 2005 Australian of the Year. I want to take you back to 2002. Fiona and I are actually co-patrons of the Peter Hughes Burn Foundation, which is a foundation out of Perth. Peter Hughes, you might remember, is the guy with the soccer ball head, I call it, who basically said, I'm okay, go and help other people after the Bali bombings, and he was actually dying in front of our eyes, wasn't he? He was so unwell. Fiona treated him as well as so many other burns victims because they were taken to Perth from Bali. I'm so curious. We put so much trust and responsibility on your shoulders. How do you as a person, your resilience, cope with an influx of critically ill people from an event like Bali and keep calm, prioritise and just attend to them as their needs dictate?
I thought being asked that question 10 years and seriously a few months back would be easier, and it's not. Seeing that suffering is just overwhelming. And the only thing you can do is, I am trained to make sure that I don't lose any of them. And unfortunately, 3 we lost in WA. And that I remember looking at a parent who said, I've lost my other child, don't lose this. And I failed. And when I look back at that, all I could do was the very best I could do on that day with everybody around me. And I called in so many favors, it wasn't funny. And I remember feeling quite isolated. But I only felt that for a second because I was used to being in a robust decision-making matrix. I've come from a Quaker high school. We're all on the same level. Everybody's got direct voice if you want it. You know, you're in this together. I am a great believer in if anybody's at the table, they've got something to give, so you've got to listen. And otherwise, why are they at the table? So we have a very flat pyramid. I'm the boss because I'm the surgeon, that's it. And on that day, everybody did as I said. And I looked, I thought, wow, nobody's asking me why. And nobody's sort of contesting, everybody's saying yes. And it was like living in a bubble. And I realized I had to take that and run with it to do the absolute very best. And I remember saying in the meetings, if we cannot treat everybody here as if they were here as individuals, we should not be doing this job. And what I want everybody to do is treat everybody here as an individual and make sure that we do the very best we can and can stand on a global stage and say that with our hand on our heart that there was nothing missing. And I'd have to say, with the support we had, we exceeded that. And we were able to do research on the back of it that has actually changed lives beyond. Nobody's life should ever be lost for nothing. You have to make sure you learn. And my coping strategy is really what you're asking me about. And it's not very good right now, is it? My coping strategy has always been to finish that day, thank everybody, and then make sure there is no stone unturned that I can learn so tomorrow is a better day. Not because today is bad, because today's you've given your best. I do not believe in average. There is no point getting up in the morning and being average. I see a lot of it and it disappoints me and it distresses me. You get out of bed and you're the best you can be. And that's what we delivered. And then we learnt, and so we went back the next day and did better and better. Even if it's only putting bandages on, you've got to do better. And so that has been my coping strategy, as I say, all the way through. And I know lives have been saved and things have improved because of that event. Well, you've got to look for the positive. I'm an optimist, I guess.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you. Your mantra is the quality, yes. A mantra you live by is the quality of the outcome must be worth the pain of survival. And this leads into the role of the mind and the brain. Can you tell us a bit about what you're discovering in that area?
Well, I guess I stand back and I think, what can I give now? I've been the director of the Burn Service of Western Australia since I was 32 in 1991. I've seen things that others haven't, and I'm a great joiner of dots. And I've seen people heal in lots of different ways, and anyone can get burnt, whether you have Alzheimer's, spina bifida, diabetes, or just plain old Joe, everyone can suffer. And what you bring to the table is you. And how we can facilitate healing is all about the whole of you. And so we started looking beyond the skin and realizing the skin is our exposure to the world. It's a big receptor. Think about the skin as a giant eye. As you walk down the road today, you'll feel the air on your hands as you're swinging. These guys swinging arms, you know. You've obviously got very good innovation in those hands, not with the gloves on. But you will feel the sunlight on your skin changes the vitamin D, which changes your immune system. There's so many things the skin does. It does so much more than when I was at university, you know. And it can do a lot more, and it's linked intimately with the brain. And so we started, that's my last kick, if you like, is to try and understand how the brain changes with injury, with skin injury, and how we can use that information to drive healing, scarless healing, both on the inside and the out. And so we do what we call starting a program where we scan the brain, scan the patterning of your brain and see how it changes, and it's called transcranial magnetic stimulation. So I'm thinking, oh, this is all a bit fancy, and better go and do this to myself before I ask any of my patients. I had a tooth out the day before, and on your pattern on your brain, your face is really near your hands. And there's very earnest scientists, and they've got me wired up to try and make my hand move to pattern my hand on my brain. And my face is looking like I'm in a gurning competition. And they're all looking at me. They knew I was mad, but I was kind of confirming it, you know. and I go, hang on. They're just turning the dial up. And like this. I said, hang on. Move it to the other side. And it worked perfectly. So just from a chance observation, pain had swamped the whole side of my brain. If any of you have burnt yourself with an iron, tiny bit, you know what that feels like. Imagine Peter, 50% of his body. It is mind-blowing, literally. So and your brain changes it, it's plastic. How can we get that absolute poof from the pain and bring it back so that we heal the same shape? How do we think ourselves whole? Now that's where we're going. So anybody who wants to help us, please.
Did I tell you she's got 6 kids as well? It's amazing.
I got really lucky. They're fantastic.
They got lucky too, Fiona. Thank you very much for coming from Perth for that. Another extraordinary woman and contributor to Australian life. She's come from the US and settled with us as Fiona's come from the UK. She's the former Premier of New South Wales. She's the current CEO of Basketball Australia. Would you please welcome Christina Keneally. Christina, you probably know the first question. I've asked it. Who inspires you? Who drives you every day?
Someone who inspires me that didn't particularly when I was a child, but I have a great appreciation for her now, is my grandmother. Yes, I did come from America, but my grandmother is from Brisbane, and her family came to Australia 150 years ago. She left as a war bride with my mother at the age of, my mother was 2, my grandmother was about 21. She traveled to America on a boat. She went and met in-laws without her husband that she'd never met before. She settled in rural Virginia, and then my grandfather drug her across America, literally, in his military career. I don't think they had a permanent home for 20 years. And she had along the way my mother, and then she had an intellectually disabled son. And when she was older, I remember, she's still alive, she lives in Toledo, and I remembered speaking to her a few years ago as I've started to get interested in genealogy and family history, and asking her about her life in Australia and her family. She only came back once in all that time since she left after World War II. And she very much left Australia and her family behind with an expectation she would never, ever see them again. And I have such an appreciation now for what she has done in her life. She was a single mother, essentially, as my grandfather was always away serving in the military. She raised 3 children, including one with an intellectual disability. She cared for him until his death at the age of 50. And she completely and utterly left every sense of support that she had in Australia, including her own parents, behind, and essentially blocked that out, that sense that she would never see them again. She was fortunate to come back and see them once. And I look at, the life I've led, and, I think, my grandmother was delighted when I moved to Australia. She said we evened out the balance of trade. But, I've got Skype, I can call my mother or text her right now. I've been, we must go back once a year to see my parents and grandparents. It's such a different world, and I can't comprehend what that it's hard for my generation, I think, to comprehend what that post-war generation lived through, gave, contributed, and that's before I even get to what my grandfather did in the war. So I'm so amazed by the strength, particularly though of women of that generation. And I look at the things women can do today, and I think it's remarkable the opportunities that women have today. But you think about the remarkable things women did in the home, in their families, in the community for generations, almost unacknowledged, that strength. And to me, that's an amazing strength. And I think it's hard to get up out of bed in the morning to do something, and I think back, and I think of all the support I have around me, and what generations before me didn't have, what my grandmother didn't have, and I just find her so amazingly inspiring. I was home, and she's got such a great sense of humor still. I was home over Christmas. I went to see her. She's in a nursing home now. I walked in, I said, "Have you been this morning, Grandma?" She goes, "I've been sitting on my ass all morning." I thought, I hope I'm like that when I'm 89, retaining that sense of humor even when my body is given out.
Let me take you to your role now as CEO of Basketball Australia. You know about intellectual disability in terms of your family history. Is that something that's important to you, programs for athletes, for young people, or not so young people, to have an outlet like basketball if they have an intellectual disability?
Incredibly so. As you say, I grew up in a family where my uncle was intellectually disabled. My mother had a lifelong commitment, and still does, to children with an intellectual disability. And some of my earliest memories of her taking my brother and I, she did volunteer work in a residential home, providing respite and other types of care for children with an intellectual disability. And one of the most privileged things I was able to do in government was to serve as the Minister for Disability Services, and then later have an impact on that area as Premier, and to see the lives of people changed, to see the person with a disability, to see their family's life change because something has provided an opportunity, whether it's a government service, whether it's a job, whether it's an opportunity to be part of a team or have an experience. It can fundamentally change how that person understands themselves. It says that you are valued, you're making a contribution, and for a family around that person, that life can change as well. My uncle had a job. He had passions and a hobby, fishing. When he died, people came to his funeral that we, his family, did not know that he knew. He was a part of a number of communities. And for us in Basketball Australia, one of the great things that we get to do, besides all the fun stuff and all the challenges, one of the great things we do is we auspice both our wheelchair teams and our intellectually disabled teams. And I just got off the phone last week with one of our athletes, Kim Larkin, who has been the captain of our Pearls, the intellectually disabled women's basketball team, from '93 to 2009. She has 1 gold medal, 5 silver, and 3 bronze. She's amazing. She's so enthusiastic, and this gives such meaning for her. She loves her role as captain, and we've just named an award after her. And to know that all the things the national sporting body does, it's great we can support an NBL and a WNBL and all those things, but to be able to also find that social value and inclusion, it's such a privilege for us.
It's critical, isn't it?
Absolutely.
An obvious question. I asked Fiona the obvious question. I got an amazing answer. I think a lot of people would like to know, when you were Premier of this state, you then went back into private life and have taken on this role now as Chief. of basketball. What is such a high-profile job as Premier, you know? What's the transition like, and what challenges, if you did have any challenges, did you face sort of slipping away from being on the daily news, the front of the paper, the radios, the talkback and all of that, to being Christina Keneally, private citizen?
I'm not sure that transition is completely has been completed. It's an interesting one. It started with my children watching me cook dinner one night, and they said, "We didn't know you knew how to cook." Excuse me. Certainly for the family, it's been fantastic. My children have known nothing else but a mother in politics. So for them, it's been great to have their mum back. They wanted a mum who was home more nights than she was out, and they've got that back. And for me, that's an amazing gift. It's been one of the challenges, Peter, has been about recalibrating the understanding of success, of problems, of failure, because when you're Premier of the state, everything happens on such a magnificently huge scale. I'll give one example. For me, this year, these last 2 years, has been about recalibrating my understanding of what my contribution is in terms of creating value, my moral, if you will, my moral imperative for existence. I have always had a job where I could say, despite everything else that's happening, I have a social justice imperative to get up and go to work. Despite everything else that's going to happen today, I'm going to be able to do something to make somebody's life better. Lower public transport fares, put $2 billion into disability. Something I can do today will make someone's life better. In basketball or in other roles, it's hard to find that sometimes. It's not, finding commercial value for the NBL, there's not a lot of social justice imperative in that. But for me, it's about thinking, well, now perhaps my social justice, my moral imperative for getting up every morning is my kids. And I have to be honest, being Premier of the state meant I wasn't there for my kids a lot of the time. So it's about recalibrating an understanding of what my contribution is at that level. And maybe for the next few years it is to be home at 5 o'clock when they get home. It's to be there consistently at their sporting events. It's to be there to help them with their homework. And it's that recalibration that I'm understanding and valuing, and I'm fortunate to be in a job I love, I'm fortunate to be in a job that is fun, and I'm fortunate to be in a job that allows me to do that. Recalibrating,
it's a great word. Well, that's the journalist in me. In just a few years anyway, and then perhaps back into politics. That's what I picked up.
No. Two things. One, right now, my husband is the mayor of Botany. I've stepped back and let him step into political life. Should have seen the reaction of our children when we informed them their dad would be running for office. It's like, what? What? Didn't we just get out of this? But he's absolutely loving that role. Second, and I make this observation, I loved my time in politics. I don't regret a day of it. I loved, and I'm humbled that I had that opportunity. I loved the things I was able to do. I thoroughly enjoyed the role. But let me say this, I also enjoyed being 17, and I'm not going to go back and do that again. And I feel like it is time for me. I've made a contribution. I've been so humbled and privileged to be able to do it, and now it's on to different things for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Christina Keneally. And would you please thank our three wonderful speakers. Fiona's going to go and get on a plane now. Her Excellency has a very busy day ahead of her, and Christina has to run Basketball Australia and get home by 5 to be with her kids. And we give you so much permission to do that because you were home after midnight so many times when you were Premier. So again, our warmest thanks to the three of you for inspiring all of us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen. She's accomplished more in her life than I think most of us have accomplished in ours. Would you please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Tracy Sammut to say a few words to us.
Thank you very much, Peter, for those kind words. Good morning. My name is Tracy Sammut, I am a Special Olympic athlete and also an actor. I've been acting and performing since I was 11 years old. My acting career started with a guest part in a medical drama series called GP, for which I won a TV Week Special Achievement Logie for my part. Which I stayed on for 3 years. I also had parts in All Saints, Clubland, Home and Away, and they were pretty awesome. I think my biggest highlight was my TV Week Logie. The impact that my Logie had on different youth theatres really also inspired me. My parents joined me up with Special Olympics when I was 10 years old, so that I could compete in sport with other people of the same ability. I started in athletics and also tried swimming until I joined Special Olympics. I was laughed at, never being picked to be on any teams. I was always last at many things. Special Olympics changed all of that. Competing became fun, whether you came first or last. Just to be there and be a part of a team was all that was important. Over the years, I have made wonderful friends through my coaches, the volunteers at Special Olympics, and most importantly, the other athletes, through competitions and social functions. My sister, Nicole, was also a gymnast. She went up to level 10 in mainstream gymnastics, and I wanted to be like her. I've been to 5 national games, 1 for athletics and rest for gymnastics. This was my biggest highlight of my gymnastics career. In 2011, I was chosen out of 10 years of gymnastics to be able to represent Special Olympics at the World Summer Games held in Athens. For gymnastics, I won 2 gold medals, 1 on floor and 1 on vault. For everyone to be in this room, I focused on getting those 2 gold medals because recently I lost my father with motor neuron disease, and my aunt and my godmother. Both of them were incredibly close to me, and my father always loved watching me in gymnastics. So my sense of goal was to get at least 1 or 2 gold medals for my dad and for my aunt. I also gained a 4th place for bars and 5th place on beam. I was also 2nd in the overall competition. I am also a gymnastics coach and have coached athletes with disability at Cogger RSL Youth Club for 6 years. I also gained my accreditation as a gymnastics coach as well. Through Special Olympics, I have been involved in the Athlete Leadership Program, which helps athletes to develop their leadership skills, goal setting, and public speaking, so that they may share these skills and experiences with other athletes, volunteers, coaches, and Special Olympics. I work part-time at NAB Wealth at North Sydney as the customer service provider. I have also had my Certificate 3 in childcare and hope to make this my future career. At the end of this year, my sister and I, we just bought a home together that we're going to make the centre of our house a childcare 3 to 5 years, and we're going to be living upstairs also. I try to be a role model and a mentor for other people with disabilities. We all have the ability, if given an opportunity and the encouragement to develop it. Special Olympics is a special and unique organisation run by a huge group of volunteers and coaches. They not only introduce us to a variety of different sports, but they also nurture us to achieve our potential. They treat us with respect and dignity as our equals and friends. Good sportsmanship and friendship are some of the other benefits of Special Olympics, which last a lifetime. Oops, I skipped a page. Sorry about that. Just bear with me for a little moment. My other great love is drama and the theatre. Last year, I developed a series of theatre workshops and approached accessible arts with my idea. They thought it was great and supported me to write an application to the Australian Council of the Arts, which I gained $15,000 to hold these workshops. These workshops are for people with and without disabilities. I was given from Australian Council of the Arts Community Partnership Professional Development Grant. I was also trained through Australian Theatre for Young People, also held in the city, as a project coordinator. And my passion to become a theatre drama teacher. And just show that you can do anything if you believe in yourself and work hard for it. I would like to leave you with the Special Olympics motto: let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be a brave in the attempt. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Sue Ellen back to the chair for a final word.
Thank you, Peter. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank our wonderful guest speakers, Her Excellency Professor Marie Bashir, Dr. Fiona Wood and the Honourable Christina Keneally, for their generosity and the time they've spent in coming to our breakfast, and also for their frankness and, I think, honesty in answering some of the questions that were given to them this morning. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Grays Asset Services, Grange Business Partners and DVT Consulting for their support. But in particular, I'd also like to thank my committee for their hard work and dedication. Fran Eustace from Special Olympics Australia, Alison Robinson from TMA, Diane Terzian from Grange Business Partners, Christina Hall from PwC, and Jennifer Ball from Clayton Utes. Thank you very much for your help during the last few months. And I'm sorry, I forgot to thank Tracy Samet as well as one of our guest speakers. Thank you so much, Tracy. But I also especially want to thank you, the guests. I mean, obviously we wouldn't have this breakfast without you. Thank you for your financial support in both the seats, the tables and the raffle prizes, and helping to make a generous support for Special Olympics Australia. We hope to see you all next year, same time. We've actually made a pencil booking for, I think, Wednesday the 5th of March, same place, same time. Look forward to seeing you then. It was a sellout this year, so please get your seats in early. Thank you very much and see you next year.